The renewal of one of the great rivalries in college football. However, this one a bit more historic than each and every year. The final edition in the Big 12, Red River, Oklahoma, Texas. We got Parker Thune here, KREF Sports. Weekdays, 12 to 3 Central Time. Also, OU rivals. Parker, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic, Mark. Always appreciate the opportunity to be on with you.
Yeah, it's a strange portion of history that we're entering here in the final days of the Big 12 for Oklahoma and Texas, and this is kind of the summit of it because this is the marquee game for the conference each and every year, in a sense, regardless of record, but certainly when they're at the top of the conference. But I don't know what other Big 12 fans are thinking about this one this year in regards to the spectacle, because this is going to lift the conference to the center of college football in regards to elevating a playoff worthy team, most likely for the rest of the season, but also does some damage going forward because it kind of accentuates that the two best commodities in the conference are short lived.
Certainly, Mark, this game has a lot more at stake than it has in recent years because typically in the past, it's been a case, well, and it's been Oklahoma more recently that has come in with a pretty sterling record, and Texas has typically come into this game scuffling a little bit. Not the case here in 2023. For the first time in 12 years, both of these teams are undefeated. Texas obviously has that resume win over Alabama on the road in Tuscaloosa, third-ranked team in the country. And then you have Oklahoma, a team that only won 6 games a year ago in what was categorically, unambiguously a down year for the program as you turned the page from Lincoln Riley to Brent Venables. But here they are in 2023 sitting at 5-0, and they're on the verge, if they can take care of business this weekend, they're on the verge of equaling their win total from a season ago halfway through the 2023 regular season. So there's a ton at stake, as you mentioned, in the college football playoff race as well. This would really, I believe, cement Texas's status as a top 4 team in the country. For Oklahoma, I don't know if it quite does that, but it definitely vaults them into the upper echelon of college football and inserts them into the playoff hunt, the playoff picture, the playoff conversation, because right now they're objectively on the outskirts. Most nationally are acknowledging, okay, this team has looked pretty good through 5 games. We also have no idea, based on the quality of the opponents that they've played through 5 games, how good they actually are. We're going to find out a lot about both of these teams this Saturday.
Yeah. Oklahoma certainly not alone in that category of, okay, it looks good so far, but who have they played? And that's upcoming. For Texas, it was another outing against Kansas in which, although the Jayhawks on the scoreboard stayed in the game through much of the third quarter, it was just a beatdown and a pounding and just kind of confirmation of, okay, how good is Kansas? Well, we've got indication that they've got skill, they've got talent. Jalen Daniels didn't play in the game, but this Texas team seems to be a different version of these top 5 talent rosters from the past. More sturdy up front, an offensive line that can be dominant, a defensive front that can do the same, just a more complete team that's more poised and more physical.
Certainly, Mark. They they look night and day different than they have the last few years. There's no question about that. They are sturdy. That's a good word. They're sturdy up front in both the offensive and the defensive trenches. They've got great talent at the offensive skill positions. You still sense that they miss Bijan Robinson a little bit. I mean, who wouldn't? Their running game has been adequate. I don't think I would call it elite for Texas, at least not right now. But the running game has been adequate. Wide receiver is really where the strength of that offense lies, and they have an excellent tight end in Jatavion Sanders. I am kind of curious, though, because obviously that win over Alabama in Tuscaloosa is impressive, but somebody pointed this out on Twitter, and it's 100% accurate, and I think deserves a mention. So far, the opposing quarterbacks that Texas has faced this year are JT Daniels at Rice, Alabama with arguably their most unsettled quarterback situation of the Saban era, and then 3 backup quarterbacks in a row. So the Longhorns look impressive offensively. Defensively, I don't know that they have been truly challenged yet. at least not to the degree that's going to cement their status as a college football playoff type team. And so once again, this Longhorns team has a lot to prove this Saturday going up against a guy in Dylan Gabriel, who, if you look at the statistics, every major statistic for quarterbacks across the country, Dylan Gabriel is at the very least in the top 10 and in most cases in the top 5.
Absolutely. And if I know Alabama, probably the worst version of Jalen Milroe that anybody's going to see this year. Texas got to see that version. I think they're finding out and figuring out what they need to do with him every week to make him successful. OU Texas, it's always historic. There's another chapter coming up. And of course, this one, the final one in the Big 12. We got Parker Thune here to break it down. Staying on Dylan Gabriel, of course, he can cement his status as a Oklahoma quarterback with at least one of those great accomplishments under his belt. If he gets a win here, he was not able to play in last year's game. And, everything he's done up until this point, to a certain extent, people are going to disregard. His legacy kind of rests on this game, or at least the start of his positive portion of his legacy.
Certainly. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. Dylan Gabriel is, for better or worse, probably going to be defined as an Oklahoma Sooner by the outcome of this football game. Because, gosh, I remember being on with you to preview this game last year, Mark, and pretty much acknowledging at that point, when there was some uncertainty over Gabriel's status after the hit he took at TCU the week prior, I remember saying, well, if Dylan Gabriel plays, Oklahoma's got a shot. If Dylan Gabriel doesn't play, this might not be a game. And lo and behold, Gabriel didn't play, and we got the latter outcome. But I think with the knowledge that Oklahoma's offense was completely dormant absent Gabriel a year ago, most Sooner fans are eager to see how much of a difference Gabriel would have actually made last year. And I don't know that what happens Saturday will objectively, clearly define what that impact would have been. But unquestionably, this is going to be his only Red River rivalry appearance, because he technically has another year of eligibility. Brent Venables and Jeff Lebby and several members of this Sooner roster have already taken the podium and press conference and said, look, we know Dylan's not coming back next year. So there's an understanding within the program that this is it for Gabriel at Oklahoma, and then it's the Jackson Arnold show in 2024. So again, look at the numbers: 19 total touchdowns, 3 turnovers thus far in 2023. By every measure, he is performing at an elite level nationally, at least in the way of statistics. He's completing 75% of his passes. But again, those performances and that cumulative stat line has come against Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, Cincinnati, and Iowa State. So not exactly murderer's row. And he's simply never played in an environment this large before, this significant before. This kind of stage will probably be the biggest stage Dylan Gabriel has ever stepped on when you look back at the trajectory of his football career. So we don't really know what we're going to get from Dylan Gabriel Saturday. It could be a case of the dude rising to the occasion, being his usual cool, calm, collected self with almost 100,000 screaming fans at the Cotton Bowl, or there's just as great of a likelihood that he could falter under that kind of pressure. We have no context for this because we've never seen Gabriel in this type of environment before. So as much as we're going to find out about Oklahoma and Texas as teams on Saturday, on an individual level, we're also going to find out a ton about what type of quarterback and what type of person Dylan Gabriel is when confronted with immense pressure.
Parker, I can't wait to get your insight into the running back situation. We came into the season, Javante Barnes, Gavin Sawchuk, 100-yard games, the 5 stars, the high 4-star status. And boy, these were the 2 stars that were going forward, the 1-2 punch. And then Marcus Major, okay, has a nice August camp. He's going to be a factor. And then all of a sudden we see Tawani Walker rush for over 100 yards in, I believe, the SMU game.
Yep.
And then we've got Barnes and Sawchuk are just absent from the box scores, absent from the field. And then boom, they jump up with like 22 carries the next week combined. And then they're gone. And it's just, I am not able to keep up with what is the strategy here with these 4 running backs.
So Barnes and Sawchuk have both been banged up. And anybody who doesn't understand that needs to understand that, because it at least provides some semblance of a rationale for why the Oklahoma coaching staff has played their cards in such a fashion with the running back room. But the one guy that's consistently gotten work in each of the Sooners' 5 games thus far has been Marcus Major. When you look at the numbers for Major versus Tawi Walker, a former walk-on, you have Major averaging 3.9 yards per carry and Walker averaging 5.1 yards per carry. I think most Sooner fans right now have come around to the notion that, at least for the moment, until Barnes and Sawchuk get 100% healthy, and again, they're healthy enough to play, but neither of them, I would say, have been at 100%. Until those two guys get healthy, I think most Sooner fans have come around to the realization that Tawi Walker probably gives you the most stable option out of the backfield, because he is not somebody that's going to break away. He does not have outstanding top end speed, but man, he is a bowling ball in the most literal sense of the word. 5'9", 220 pounds, all of it sheer muscle mass. And he's coming downhill at you. He's going to pop you in the mouth. He's not going around you to either direction. He's going straight through you. And that's been a pretty effective running style, at least in the context of Oklahoma's run game thus far in the 2023 season. So I believe that Marcus Major probably ought to take a back seat to Tawi Walker. You don't have to totally omit Major from the game plan, and I don't think anybody's suggesting that. But if Barnes and Sawchuk aren't 100% healthy this weekend and they're playing at 80, 85, 90%, and you got to have somebody that's willing and able to take 20 carries in this football game and turn those 20 carries into meaningful output and production, I would say Tawi Walker is your guy for the moment.
Speaking of production, Parker, on the outside, that obviously a talking point as we've had you on a number of times and through Oklahoma circles about this wide receiver core. How good is it? Is it going to threaten a defense? Andrel Anthony has been the guy that, at least from my vantage point, has flashed at times as being, okay, this can be a guy that can do some special things in open space. Your thoughts about the wide receiver core matching up against the Texas secondary?
Well, it was arguably the biggest question mark on the entire offense and maybe the entire team heading into the season. And through 5 games, it's been their biggest strength. And that is a testament to the work of first-year receivers coach Emmett Jones, whom the players have raved about. And it's also a testament to some of the individual initiative these guys took in the offseason to take their game to the next level. Jaden Gibson is a night and day different player than he was last season. Nick Anderson, you're starting to see some of that potential that he always had, but he struggled with injuries as a freshman. Couldn't stay healthy, couldn't stay on the field. In his sophomore year, 5 of his first 10 receptions have gone to pay dirt. And again, Andrel Anthony, you mentioned him. He caught 1 pass a year ago at Michigan. And the word from the Michigan side was he just couldn't catch the ball with any degree of regularity. Drops were the bugaboo for him. We haven't seen a hint of that at Oklahoma. He's been lights out. He's the Sooners' leading receiver in most major categories right now. And then you got old reliable Drake Stoops out of the slot and a guy in Gavin Freeman behind him that adds a little bit of lightning to the offense. Jalil Farouk in his second year as a starter, he's been everything Oklahoma has needed him to be. So the Sooners are legitimately 7, maybe 8 deep when you look at the play that Brennan Thompson made Saturday against Iowa State in his first game back from an ankle injury. First catch as a Sooner goes for 54 yards, and on that play, he flashed the top-end speed that enabled him to run a 10.18 100-meter dash in high school and made him one of the most coveted prospects in America out of a little small town in the Texas Panhandle. So the depth and the diversity of playmaking ability in this wide receiver room right now at Oklahoma is truly special, looks truly special. I think we're going to find out whether it is indeed truly special when they go up against this Texas secondary on Saturday and get what I would quantify to be their first real test.
You can catch Parker Thune's work at Sooners Rivals and KREF Sports Radio. The show is 12 to 3 Central Time each and every weekday. Parker, when we look at the defense, Again, people are going to throw out, okay, who have they played? However, the level of production, uh, I also would measure against what have those opponents done against other top teams on their schedule, and the likes of Cincinnati scoring 6 points and turning around and putting up reasonable numbers against other Power Five opponents. Iowa State this past week, I know that they made big plays and produced some points in the first half, and then Oklahoma really clamped down. So the Sooner defensive effort seems to be more than just beating up on bad teams, but has truly been just a huge upgrade from last season.
No doubt about it. And again, they did give up those couple big plays against Iowa State, but those very much seemed like one-off plays, not indicative of systemic issues, which is what we've seen from Oklahoma's defense in the past. You look at those 2 long touchdown passes from the Cyclones on Saturday. They were a result of 2 individual, and I wouldn't even call them busts. I would just say they misplayed the ball uncharacteristically. Key Lawrence on one play, Billy Bowman on another. That hasn't happened with any degree of regularity. And so it was just kind of a case of lightning striking twice on Saturday. It doesn't, I don't think, provide any indication that the scheme has somehow put this defense in peril, or that there are conspicuous weaknesses that are going to be exposed by better offensive coordinators or better offensive skill position guys. No, I just think it was a case of a couple guys completely missing plays on balls, and it happened to occur twice in the same game. But on the large scale, this has been one of the most consistent defenses in college football through 5 games. They've only allowed 54 total points. That's an average of 10.8 per game, which puts them in the national top 3 in that category. So you have a middle linebacker in Danny Stutzman that's playing like an All-American right now. You have a much improved pass rush with at least 3-4 guys, different guys off the edge that can provide consistent pressure on the quarterback. They've defended the run well. And I would say for the first time in a long time, Mark, I'm talking 10, maybe 15 years, the secondary not only doesn't look like a liability for Oklahoma, but it actually looks like it might be a legitimate strength. They have 10 interceptions through 5 games, not 10 turnovers forced, 10 interceptions. They're ball hawking. Everybody's ball hawking right now. 7 different players have an interception for this program. So with Woody Washington at one corner, Gentry Williams looking like a bona fide stud in his first season as a starter, as a sophomore on the other side, and then an excellent safety rotation that features the likes of Billy Bowman, Reggie Pearson, Key Lawrence, Robert Spears Jennings, and the freshman wonderkind, Peyton Bowen. There's a lot to like about what the Sooners have on defense right now.
Folks, please like the video, share these videos out on social media, subscribe to the Voice of College Football, check out Parker's work, Sooners Rivals, and then also his radio show on KREF each and every weekday from noon to 3 Central Time. Parker, do you think this game needs to be a certain style to fit Oklahoma's best path to a victory?
A certain style. That's an interesting question. I think what this team has demonstrated through 5 games, admittedly against somewhat inferior opponents, is that they're capable of winning in multiple different ways. For instance, they dropped 50 on Iowa State this past Saturday. But the week before, they went up to Nippert Stadium, engaged the Bearcats in what was a slow-moving defensive stalemate for much of the football game that relied on field position and ability to be consistent in moving the chains. And they were able to grind out a 20-6 win against that squad. So I wouldn't say it needs to be a certain style. I do think the program, not the program, but the position group that's going to be tested the most for this program on Saturday is definitely that defensive secondary, because what you can't do is let Texas run away from you, particularly early. The Sooners have come out of the gate really, really slow in the last 2 Red River showdowns, and that can't be the case Saturday. I think Texas has the advantage in this football game, and that doesn't necessarily mean Texas wins the football game, but I think Texas certainly has the advantage when you look at the way they're running the ball versus Oklahoma right now. They have a running game. Oklahoma does not have as much of one. They need to figure that out. And you also got to get, I would say, another Heisman caliber individual performance from Dylan Gabriel on Saturday. I think Oklahoma, the style that probably suits Oklahoma best when it comes to winning this game is, I feel like you'd like to engage Texas in a bit of a track meet. You'd rather have this game be of the 38-35 variety than the, well, to use the Cincinnati example, the 20-6 variety. But the Sooners can win in multiple ways, and so I don't think it necessarily needs to be a single recipe. It just needs to be a case of playing complementary football, minimizing mistakes, and I would say, as simple as this is, winning the turnover battle on Saturday.